meeting for Board of Commissioners meeting Friday, April the 30th, 2021 at 10:03 is our time that we're coming to order. This morning, before we get started, I would like to lay some foundations for our meeting this morning. This is a special board meeting for our Board of Commissioners. To our public that may possibly be speaking, we will have a time clock on the screen this morning. Our public comments, we're asking you to please keep them minimum of 3 minutes, please. And our commissioners this morning will be acknowledged by raising their hands when they want to speak and make a motion. And so we want to try to get this meeting going, and we are possibly going to be out of this meeting approximately by 11 o'clock. So we ask you for your, we want you to really please grant us these wishes this morning that we have asked you to do. Keep public comments to 3 minutes. And at this time, we're ready to get started with our public comments this morning. Do we have anyone from the public that will be speaking this morning in this meeting? See that there is no one speaking in public comments at this time. We're gonna go to our third item on our agenda, which is the salary of our CEO. Ms. Tackney Reed will come and present to us this morning from our HR department.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Board of Commissioners. As discussed during the previous meeting, we talked about the evaluation rating for our interim CEO, which overall evaluation rating was an exceeds expectation. And we wanted to discuss some options for the salary increase based on the performance of the interim CEO. So at this time, Ms. Brock is going to discuss some of the salary ranges.
Yes. Yeah, let our Board of Commissioners hear some of the salary range before we actually make a motion.
Okay. So when you look at the NAILROD compensation study, which you also have in your packet, this study was done on August 21st. And it showed the minimum range for the CEO position at Jacksonville Housing Authority should be at $177,735, with the maximum being at $351,747. The survey mean is at $213,712. If you also look in your packet, I included for you from HUD, the federal government agency. You will see, and this is data from calendar year 2014. So we talked about like-size housing authorities, or Jacksonville Housing Authority being number 3 in the state of Florida. So if you look at this, and this is from 2014, as you know, salaries have increased over time. So when you look at us being number 3, Tampa Housing Authority being number 1, Miami-Dade County is not here. It does have Miami-Dade Public Housing and Community Development, but that is not equivalent to Miami-Dade Housing Authority because they are outsourced. Part of their agency is with NAMA-K, so I haven't been able to get accurate data for that agency. But I want you to pay close attention to smaller housing authorities, such as Daytona Beach is one that I want you to look at, as well as the city of Fort Myers, who are not in comparison in size and scope. So when I talk about size and scope, that is the number of housing choice vouchers as well as the number of public housing units. So I gave that to you as a reference point as well, because we did talk about the NAILROD compensation study not being inclusive of like-size housing authorities historically. So we want to make sure that we look at that in the future.
You finished, Ms. Tackney?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, good morning. Commissioner Phillip has her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So these are from 2014?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay.
This is the data that I was able to obtain from HUD in its calendar year 2014.
Okay, so it's older data, and it doesn't tell us what the current is at all.
Now, for example, I do have current for Tampa, which currently is at 257.78. So some of them I have current data, but majority of them I do not. So HUD publishes this document, and I have not been able to find a most recent one, but I will work for that, look for that in the future.
Okay. Any other questions from any of our commissioners on this presentation? Okay, so we're gonna open for discussion for our CEO, current CEO, Mr. Dwayne Alexander, for his pay raise for the fiscal year of October 20 through September 2021. Do I have any discussion on his salary? No, maybe one. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I didn't see you, Commissioner.
If Ms. Reed could tell us, again, remind us from the last meeting, the salary history for Mr. Alexander, please.
Yes, I can. So the current salary for Mr. Alexander, he is currently at $180,578.74. Prior to going into the interim position, Mr. Alexander was a vice president, and he was at, apologies. So prior to going into the interim position, he was at $152,144. And then when you gave him the 15% increase to go into the interim position, he went to $166,634.
So his starting salary when he came to the housing authority was not one of those three, right? Or was it?
No. So his starting salary when he came to the housing authority was at $114,999. He went to a 5% increase after his probationary period to $120,749. And correction, he got the 20% increase to go into interim CEO at $144,899.
Any other questions from our commissioners? Okay. That being said, and we've heard the presentation from Ms. Reed, can I get our Board of Commissioners to make a motion? If you want me to make one, I'd like for one of our commissioners to make a motion.
I make a motion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You can make the motion. What's your motion? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Lazikia. This is our legal team. Hold on, Commissioner. I'm
Right.
sorry. I didn't see you.
No, you're okay. Thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to make sure that the commissioners understood that this pay increase would be for today through the end of this fiscal year, September 30th, 2021. So when you make that motion, just understand that that's the time period that the pay increase will affect.
Okay, now, before you make the motion, let me say something based on what our legal team just said. What she informed me of on yesterday, that we could not go back and pay for work that had already been done. Has there been other agents in the city that has done it? Yes. Do we get penalized for it? No. So she said that we needed to start him from today. That's why I was so pressed for us to get this meeting in, because he's already lost 6 months of pay on his raise, which is not his fault that we failed to do his evaluation as a board. So I just wanted y'all to, be aware of that. And this will go all the way through, like she said, until September 2021, when we do his new evaluation.
So
Yes,
there's no retro pay.
They're not giving it to him, no. I mean, hold on, to our legal team. Did you hear the question from the commissioner?
Yes.
He wanted to know. Yes, Ms. Cook.
Yes, so through the chair, there is a Florida statute 215.425 that prevents government employers from providing pay for services that have already been completed. So basically what that means in real life is you can't give a retroactive raise. And although Ms. Brock is correct that that has happened in other agencies in the past, our office is consistent in our advice going forward that that is not appropriate. We do actually have active litigation with another agency over that issue. And it has nothing to do with the individual. It's literally just a statutory issue. So yes, so no retroactive raise.
And also to follow behind Ms. Cook, to our Board of Commissioners, I just want you to know that this agent here in the past, starting all the way back to 2012, had gave fiscal year, which would be October would be the fiscal year, have given to employees back once it was approved for their raises, have retroactive back and gave it up to, but yesterday that's when I was advised about Mr. Alexander's, and I had told them that in the past we had done that, and they were saying that, we wouldn't be penalized for it, but the proper practice. And this is why we're trying to move forward with getting everything started on time so that our staff and the employees will not be lagged in getting what they deserve. Yes.
My question is, your advice, Ms. Cook, that is based on a salaried employee, because I know that we, through collective bargaining, have done retro for our employees. So it's a difference between the collective bargained employees and the salaried employees.
We've done it.
Yeah.
But go ahead, Ms. Cook. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. So, and I don't want to sidetrack. I know that you guys have, very specific purpose for today.
Right.
I don't want to spend too long talking about other issues, but yes, to answer Ms. Phillips, to answer your question, and I told Ms. Brock this yesterday, our office is currently working to determine. We think that there's an exception for collective bargaining agreement employees, but we are working to firm that up. 215 does not have a ton of authority on it. And so a lot of that comes from the Attorney General's office, who we're considering reaching out to. But I also just wanted to clarify on the consequence issue. And Ms. Brock is correct that the statute itself does not provide for any sort of, liability to the employer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be one. We just haven't had that experience before. So I can't guarantee you that if you did something that against our advice that there wouldn't be a consequence. There's just not one provided for in the statute. And I can't speak to things that happened in 2012. I've been with the office for a little under 2 years. I can tell you that since I joined, we've been consistent in our advice that you can't give retro raises. The same as some of you who were here for the shade meeting. You probably remember Lori and I couldn't give bonuses for last year's work. The same thing, right? We can't give pay for work that's already been performed. So it shouldn't be totally new, but I do understand that in the past, different things happen. But I'm just here today to talk about what you're working on today. So.
Okay, now to speak along with what Ms. Cook just said. I know she said she just started 2 years ago, and I said 2012. What I mean by that to our new commissioners, so that you can understand, we have been retroacting back pay to the staff of the Jacksonville Housing Authority up and from 2012 up to the current. We just retroacted back to the staff in December that we voted on. The Board of Commissioners voted on to give them their money from October 1 to the current, to the current. So I just wanted you to know that, so that you can understand, we have been doing that. It wasn't just 2012 that we did it in. They've been doing it all along for the other staff, not the CEO too got back, but I just wanted you to understand that. So now, Commissioner Mercer, since you've heard all of the conversation and that we've had about it, you wanted to make a motion.
Let me retract. You asked for motion to approve the pay increase.
Yeah, you gotta make a motion for the pay increase. What do you think that the pay increase should be for Mr. Alexander because it'll start April the 30th through September. They are advising us that we don't retroact him back to October 1.
So have we discussed the percentages?
No, we haven't. You have to make a motion for the percentage.
Okay.
So
through the chair, can we bring him up to speed on what happened on our last meeting?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so our last meeting, we had Commissioner Briggs, he's not here today. He had made a motion when we got to Mr. Alexander's salary. He had made a motion for 5%. And at that time, we were open for discussion. And so Commissioner Annabelle said, well, because he was saying that we gave all of the staff, well, we didn't give all of the staff because they work off of merit. They work off of 3, 4, and 5. And so the highest that their staff can get is 5%. So he had made a motion for Mr. Alexander to get 5%. And so Commissioner Annabelle had said that I don't think we should give him 5% because we hold him to a higher standard than because he's running the whole agent. And so I agreed because he is running the whole agent. So that's how, that's why we're here where we're at today.
Through the chair, there's also the public issue as to how it would look if we increase his salary by more than 5% as the interim CEO and more than the broad population of the authority, which was Ms. Phillips' point in the last meeting. So we couldn't pass the motion to do 5% because we didn't have quorum. We didn't have quorum to actually pass the 5%.
We have 4 present and 3 voted for the 5% and 1 voted against it. But it requires, our bylaws require through the chair that we have 4 affirmative votes for whatever action is taken.
So there was a proposal for 5 and 10%.
Just 5. No, just 5. That was all that was put on the floor. We didn't get an opportunity to put another motion on the floor for a different amount because some of our commissioners had to leave and they couldn't stay to the meeting. And to what Commissioner Phillips just said, we need 4 votes to make it official to be able to move forward.
So if we don't have the 4 votes today, then nothing happens either.
Yeah.
So could we come to a consensus before we vote on it so that we don't have the then we're not stuck in a split again like last time.
There
Okay.
has to be a motion on the
It has
floor
to be
for
a
us to be
motion,
able to discuss it.
put on the
Well,
floor.
through the chair, can I just really, to the commissioner's point, if you recall, you and I had this exact discussion, because you were in a posture where you need 4 people to unanimously approve any motion that's put on the table. The Robert Rules suggestion was we have a motion and then we discuss. To the commissioner's point, since we need unanimous votes here, you could also do it where you have the discussion first for the purposes of gauging consensus. And then once you have that consensus, then someone can put a motion on the table. That may be more efficient because you only have 4 and you need 4 of you to be on the same page.
Okay, okay,
Great.
so we'll have a discussion. We'll have a discussion first, if it's okay with the Board of Commissioners, about what motion we're gonna put on the floor,
Yes,
okay?
that's okay.
If you raise your hands, wanna start with you, Commissioner?
Sure, I would think a 10% would be more adequate to bring it up to, I mean, you look at some of these, and tomorrow it could be another CEO, but you want to have, for this size agency, you want to have a competitive, in my opinion, a more competitive salary.
Okay. Mr. Mercer, Commissioner Mercer said, 10%. Anyone else wanna have some discussion?
I'm supportive of the 10% because it does mean pay for just 6 months. So it really very closely equates to an annual 5% increase. So I think from the publicity standpoint, if we portray it as the decision was delayed for 6 months and there's no retroactive pay, and we position ourselves where this is not something that's going to continue happening going forward, the raises are going to be in line with the rest of the authority. But for this period, just because it was so materially delayed and it only applies to the next 6 months, the 10% seems more adequate because it does equate to a 5% annual increase. Phillips. Oh, through the chair.
Commissioner Phillips.
Is there, and I'm speaking through the chair to Ariel, is there a way to do that? I fully understand, yes, we would want it to cover a year's period, but if you do the 10%, a 5% for the year would take him basically from 180 to 189. If you do a 10%, it's gonna take him from 180 to 199.
Slightly lower than that, I think.
198, okay.
Right,
it'll be 198.
190.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
so-
$9,000 difference.
So it's a $9,000 difference, yeah, and that then, as long as Mr. Alexander continues on with the agency, then would affect future increases. You see, you'd be making an increase on 198 as opposed to 190. So my question to Ariel is, can we do a bifurcated increase that would be the 5%, and then for merit, give him another 5%, which would equate to giving him the additional dollars? Can we do a merit increase is my question.
Yes, absolutely. Through the chair, you can do a merit increase. I think, I'm not sure if I'm totally understanding, but it sounds like you're asking if there's a way to have, at the end of the fiscal year, have it not be the higher total.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay. I'm trying to think, I'm just trying to think on the spot if I've ever seen something like that done. I'm not I think really the only way you could do that would be like a prospective type of incentive pay. Like if you anticipate some additional challenges in the next 6 months and you want to give him, again, not a bonus for work he's already done, but a prospective incentive amount for some expected labor. You could do it that way, but I'm not aware of a way that you could like basically give him a 5% merit raise and then take that it reverts back at the end of this. I'm not aware of how you could structure that. Lasikia may have a more experience, but I also did want to just speak to an earlier point about the optics of the CEO being given the same raise as employees. And again, Lasikia may have more experience I think my understanding is that generally speaking, at the city, generally, to the extent you can say that, they're not, the CEO's raise is not tied to what the employees get. So just to the extent that people are concerned about that, I don't think that that's necessarily the norm and that you need to feel constrained by what's given to like the bargaining unit employees and the staff. I do think it's generally understood that the CEO is handled separately, but just for whatever that's worth.
That's helpful.
Yes,
So-
Commissioner.
So question, I'm looking at the mean salary, 213,000. And I think the base should not be what he's getting now. Let's just say he hits the Powerball in a year and decides to retire. And we want to go search for a new candidate. How much are we going to have to offer a new candidate that's going to be well qualified and of that caliber to run an agency this size? So let's just say we do that, because we're basing in what he's getting paid now, not what the position should be. In my opinion, he should get what the position is worth. So I at the same time want to be fair to where he's compensated properly for his talents and not based on where he's currently at. Because the last thing we want to do is, something, God forbid, happens, and then next year and you start somebody brand new at 210,000 because nobody wants to take the job at 190. So,
yeah.
Just from the private sector, I'm also thinking I have that issue with employees too, where you start somebody new because and then now the rates have gone up so much. They're like, the guy that's been with me for 10 years doesn't make as much as somebody who just walked in, and I don't think that's.
Well, you do understand, Madam through the chair, that on this agenda, we are talking about looking for, making a decision as about how we're going forward for a permanent position in this. And so, though Mr. Alexander had withdrawn from the process the last time, he may want to be a candidate in the upcoming screening as well, if that's what this board decides.
I understand.
To Commissioner Mercer, I do understand exactly, and I agree exactly with what you were saying. Miss Reed, you heard what Ms. Mercer said. Can you address that for me, please, from the point of view from HR, please?
Yes, through the board of chair. So basically what you're saying is absolutely correct. And previously in the search that we had, there was a candidate identified who at the time withdrew because he was in a smaller housing authority and they offered additional monies for him to stay, right? So you're absolutely correct. And when you look at the current compensation study, which is outdated, and when you're looking to attract and hire talent, as we want to continue to grow the agency, compensation has to be a factor. Because you can't just consider we're a housing authority, we're not for profit, where we're competing with private sector and public sector as well. And one of the things that we want to do is look holistically and compare ourselves to like-sized agencies so that we can recruit, attract, and retain the right talent for this agency to serve our clients and residents. So that is very important factor to consider, and you're absolutely right. And not only do you look at who you're bringing in externally, you still have to make sure competitively internally that the wages are comparable as well. So that's why it's very important to ensure you have relevant information, but you have more up-to-date compensation studies to be able to support the compensation for the agency.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. And also, I would like to say too, to the Board of Commissioners, especially for our newer commissioners, Mr. Alexander have a total of 30 years with not Jacksonville Housing Authority, but with housing authorities across this country. So I just wanted to make that point. Over 32, I think it's over 32 years. So.
And this data is fresh, correct?
So that is from 2019.
2019.
It's not fresh.
Okay, 2019.
Okay.
Through the chair, I am supportive of the 10% increase. And we are getting started pretty quickly to hit the September deadline for the next round if he was to continue as the CEO. So I am supportive of that percentage that doesn't even get to the mean.
Right.
It's really hard to judge how many items are in the mean, and it's difficult, and sizes. So I'm taking data as valuable, but it's only one data point. So seeing that we will be looking at his salary again within less than 6 months, we'll have this discussion again, and we're looking to fill the permanent position. I am supportive of a 10% increase at this point in time.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Did we discuss, so it's a little tough when we're talking about percentages and increasing salaries, but, 5, 10%, we are aware that, how's that gonna be perceived, but did we look at, basing it on, and I understand, I completely agree with you with the data point here, but having, if you look at a study of salaries, regardless of what he's getting now, hey, and it might be, I'm just exaggerating, it might be like a 15, 20%, yeah, because we don't know how much we're behind. But also it does make me more comfortable saying what my colleague said, that in 6 months, then we have another opportunity for adjustment.
Through the chair, I think I'm trying to come to a middle ground where we could all agree.
I agree with you completely.
I could see both of points. I just think if we try to focus on the 10%, we're on the middle ground where we can get 4 votes.
Right.
I think if we go to try and get to the mean today, we're going to leave here without a
With
decision.
nothing. Right.
And
I
but
completely
I
agree
do
with
see
you.
your point.
Yeah, I think likewise.
Any other discussion? That being all of our discussion, we will close it out. I have not asked the Board of Commissioners for a motion.
Motion for the 10%.
A second.
Okay, it was moved by Commissioner Mercer, 10% for Mr. Alexander, salary, a raise, second by Ms. Commissioner Annabelle. All in favor?
Do we have to have a discussion first?
Okay.
Since
No.
a motion has been made?
We had to discuss, Ms. Lazekia.
Yes, through the chair.
Commissioner Phillip was asking a question. She was saying, should we have a discussion on the motion? Because that's the reason we had the discussion before we made the motion.
No, I mean, through the chair. So, right, you were having that discussion beforehand to get the consensus. Absolutely, if a board member after a second wants to make a comment, you can certainly allow the board member to make a comment before you vote.
Oh, okay. All right. Commissioner Phillip, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes. And I think, I may be mistaken, but I think I made the motion at the last meeting. You said that Mr. Briggs had made it. I made the motion, Mr. Briggs seconded, for the 5%. I do feel that Mr. Alexander continues to do a good job. I still am in favor of my previous motion, but I believe that in fairness to Mr. Alexander and the work that he's done and the work that this organization has done, that we need to move forward with placing a permanent person in the position, and a part of that is dealing with the current salary situation. So I'm going to support the 10% so that we can move forward with this. But there are some areas and comments that I made in the evaluation that I still think that need to be addressed going forward. And so I'm going to vote in favor.
Through the chair, I completely agree, and I think depending on how this meeting develops, there needs to be specific performance and guidance that needs to be accomplished. So the conversation the next time is not superficial or is not based on real accomplishments and data. There are plenty of accomplishments. I feel like you said, his work on the agency deserves this and we should move on. But if we make it specific, then it's very easy to argue for it or against it. And we as a board need to implement that as soon as possible.
Well, we plan on implementing that, Commissioner. If we can get to it today, we plan on implementing that. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, Commissioner Phillip, for your, comments. Commissioner Phillip called the question. All in favor for the motion?
Aye.
None opposed? The motion has passed. We will go to our item on the agenda. Item 4. For our President CEO search. Ms. Taffany Reed, would you come and present for us item 4?
Yes.
Once you present, I do want to call for public comments under that item. Okay? Okay. So can I have do we have any public comments at this time for our item agenda number 4? For our search for CEO? You see anything? Do you have? Ms. Linda?
No, there's no comments.
No public comments, Ms. Linda?
No public comments.
Okay. Do you see any hands? No public comments? Okay. I want the public to understand that we will not be opening up for public comments after Ms. Reed do her present for the search for the CEO. If you had any comments, you needed to make those comments at this time. Thank you.
Through the board of chair. So we want to talk about the permanent CEO search and discuss some action items. But first, I want to make sure that we understand that the city had a resolution 2020-0561-A that strongly encouraged the Board of Jacksonville Housing Authority to delay the selection of the Chief Executive Officer of the Jacksonville Housing Authority for the later of 2 months, or when the full 7-member board for the Jacksonville Housing Authority has been seated. This resolution was put in on September 22nd, 2020, which we are past the 2 months.
The title has got to match this title, and there is a little. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I apologize, I'm sorry. So we passed the 2 months time frame. However, I do know that we have been in discussion in reference to how we're going to proceed. Once you all discuss on what you want to do, I think Ms. Brock, Chair, will go and have conversation with the City Council President. So when we talk about the interim CEO, so these are your options. If the interim CEO is interested in the position, you can have discussion on offering the interim CEO that position, as well as I've included in your packet the CEO succession policy. When you talk about succession planning, it's all about when an individual is going to leave the agency, they're making plans to retire, or there's something that happens immediately, you have to make a plan of succession. So similar to how Mr. Alexander got into the interim CEO position that he's in today, was part of the succession plan. And then I've also included in your packet the contract, the supplemental hiring procedures for Chief Executive Officer. It talks about the appointment of a search committee, the required search committee recommendations. I included in there the contract from Gans and Gans. So previously, we as an agency paid $25,000 to a search firm to search for a CEO. So when you think about the cost of searching and the candidates that were produced from that search, and we still didn't receive a candidate. So I want you to make sure that you look at those options and look at the information that was provided to you, and then I'll turn it back over to the board chair.
Okay. Have our commissioners had an opportunity to look at the documents that Ms. Reed is talking about. I'm pretty sure that Commissioner Phillip, these documents are no stranger to her. They're no stranger to me. So basically, we wanted to provide them for our new board members so that they could really see, where we've been. So at this time, I'm gonna get ready to open up because I did want to have a discussion with the Board of Commissioners to try to see where all of our mindsets were for as hiring, a CEO, so that I could make an appeal to City Council. Because City Council, all 19 City Council members voted on this and liaison, and we don't want to be, we don't want to be out of order. So I wanted to go back and ask them, when I find out where we sat as a board, when I go and ask them if we could move forward and they remove this resolution so that we can move forward in hiring a permanent CEO. I know that they had requested a 7 board, but that was back in September. We already now is in April, and so I wanted to see if they would grant us that. Yes, Commissioner Phillip.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. I know the governance committee that was previously established worked on some information relative to the succession policy. Do we have that information, the recommendations that came out of the governance committee for updating the succession policy?
I don't think we have that. Ms. Lazikia?
Right, through the chair. When Susan Burbeck, I think, was on the board and she was on the CEO search committee. I don't think that committee ever got to making any changes, any official changes or recommendations to the succession policy. That was the charge. But the committee never did that and took anything to the board. And of course, Mr. McGowan, when he was the chair of the board, dispensed and dissolved that committee.
Okay, so the governance committee did not work on update of the succession policy and plan.
No, I just want to be clear. The bylaws and governance committee that was working diligently on the employee manual, they never did any work on that, but there was a special charge to the CEO search committee to not only lay out a process for the CEO search, but also to update the CEO succession policy. And there was never any action taken at the committee level and brought to the board.
That was my first question. The other one, and legal counsel may be the one to address this as well. A resolution from the city council is not binding. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct. It only expresses the thoughts and opinions of the council.
And because it says the later of 2 months, or when there's a 7-member board, since we're beyond the 2 months, though I think it's a good idea to have a conversation with the city council, that's not required for us to take any action.
Later off, so the later off.
Right, it's the later of, right, correct.
Also, that is the same way, but we have to wait.
So it's a later of, it's 2 months or the 7
correct. Whichever comes
members,
later.
But then it's a non-binding recommendation.
Right, correct.
And given the protracted amount of time that it's taken for us to get a full complement of the board, if we're going to move forward, I guess it's a great idea to have some conversation with the city council about where we go. As well as at the last meeting, I think I suggested that we might also need to have a conversation with the mayor's office about the time frame in which they anticipate introducing additional members that would get us to the 7-member board as well.
Chair, that was my question to legal counsel. I don't know if council had made any progress on identifying two further board members who where we were with that. So that's through the chair, that would be another one of the items, addressing the resolution, seeing where city council is, and that would be our pledge that we haven't met any headwind. We probably should figure this part out with a 5% board.
To the commissioners, both of you, Commissioner Phillip and Commissioner Annabelle, for both of you, our legal, which is Ms. Lazikia, said that she did get an email from the mayor's office that they are doing some interviews, but not for two, but maybe one, possibly two, but definitely is supposed to be one. When that will happen, I don't know, but that's the reason that we wanted to have this conversation today, and we wanted to see also with Mr. Alexander what his thoughts were about this position as the CEO, since he's been operating for more than 2.5 years in that position. I wanted to get a statement from him to find out, do he want this position, so that when we do put together our conversation or we go forth, we'll know that I would like for the board to look at not doing a national search again, because we spent so many dollars on that, and that brought us nowhere. And just simply, as a board, we can, according to the legal team, we could offer Mr. Alexander the job as the CEO. But again, we also want to get the blessings of the city council in doing that. So I want to get Mr. Alexander's, you want to speak before I get Mr. Alexander's thoughts?
If I could, just for clarity, because we have the two new board members, the CEO search did net qualified candidates, several of them, at least 4 or 5 qualified candidates. And we were in the process and made an offer to one of them and talked to the second one on the list after Mr. Alexander had withdrawn. He was, I think, number 3 on the list. There were 2 other candidates that because of our process and because of the city council resolution, it slowed down the process. And in the interim, when the first candidate, when his employer was made aware that he had been made an offer, they wanted to keep him. And so we took so long that he was offered more money and we lost him. And similarly, the second candidate, after that, he was like, well, I've got other offers. I'm going to have to move on because you can't tell me when we're going to be available. So I don't want to say that the search did not net any candidates. It did. It was our process that left us without a permanent director.
And again, to Commissioner Phillip comments, I never said that we didn't have any candidates, because we did. And Mr. Alexander and the other candidate that we did select, both of them got votes of 4 commissioners, both of them. And so, like Ms. Phillip is saying, both of those other 2 candidates, the housing authority offered them new positions, one a new position, and the other one, they offered him more money than what we were going to pay here in Jacksonville.
Through the chair, if we don't address discussing the resolution with council and hearing from you, Mr. Alexander, if you want the job, because the last time I heard. So I would like to proceed with that. Those are really good points.
Right. Mr. Alexander. Oh, I'm sorry. To our legal team.
Right, I just wanted to give the board a little bit more detail and hope on the mayor's office job to appoint the members, because the way that it works is the city council can't appoint, they wait for the mayor's office, just like the mayor's office offered all of you to be on the board, then the council confirms. So I've had meetings with Rachel Zimmer, and I would expect that there will be a 6th member legislation filed for that member so that the resolution to appoint that member is introduced into the May 11th City Council meeting. And from a timing standpoint, it typically takes 6 weeks for the council to pass legislation. So probably by June, the first week of June, you'll have a 6th member, and Ms. Zimmer is diligently working on, as the chair stated, that 7th member. But I just want to give you an idea of how the mayor's office, a more detailed idea of how they're moving along.
Okay. And I want to also point out, before Mr. Alexander speaks, I also want to point out that when we asked him to be the interim CEO, that was supposed to only be for 6 months. And so, and he still has been operating as the interim CEO. Mr. Alexander, at this time, can you speak to the Board of Commissioners, your desire?
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me clear up a couple things. I wasn't asked to be in a position for 6 months. It was 30 to 60 days.
I made a mistake.
So I just want to make that clear. The other thing, it was 3 finalist candidates, 8 of us, and it was down to 3.
Exactly.
And of the 3, 2 of us received 4 votes, and 1 received 1.
Right.
And one that received 1 is not working at a housing authority now. He's currently a director of HUD. And the first one actually stayed with his existing housing authorities, and both of them worked at much smaller housing authorities than the Jacksonville Housing Authority.
Exactly.
My only thing is that I'm very interested in being in a position. I've been doing a position. I've been here actually next month. I'll celebrate my 3 years here at the Jacksonville Housing Authority, and 2 years and just about 6 months I've been in the capacity interim president and CEO, and we have totally revamped our systems and have made tons of progress around here. It's things that has not been in place. As most of you may know, there are some issues that we had here with the OIG. We responded and addressed every issue they had in there except for 2 that we should resolve very quickly, shortly. We lack some fundamental systems in place. We put them in place. We lack some policies and procedures, and we have worked diligently to put these things in place. So to ask me, I'm here to service the public and to work at the leisure of the board. I would love to be in this position. And if the board sees fit for me not to be in a position, then that would be fine too. But I would say that because I enjoy what I do and I love Jacksonville, and I plan on retiring from Jacksonville at some point. But to answer the question, yes, I would be interested in a position.
So, to our Board of Commissioners, you've heard Mr. Alexander's statement, you've heard his desire. Can we open for discussion on how you may feel as making him the CEO of the Jacksonville Housing Authority? Yes, Commissioner Phillip.
I think that in deference, and I'm not sure why Mr. Griggs was not able to be here with us today. But at the last meeting, when we had conversation, I know one of the things that he said was that he wanted all of the currently sitting board members to be present to have an opportunity to be involved in this discussion. So though I might be in favor of moving forward with that action, in deference to Mr. Griggs as a board member, I would like that same thing for him to be present. So I'm not prepared today to go forward there as one person.
Okay. Any other commissioners would like to address Mr. Alexander Desire?
I am supportive of him proceeding with the role. I just know we have to go through the right channels, and it might take us some time, but I am supportive. I think based on when we would have a 7-person board, we're looking at this position continuing to be interim for another 4 to 6 months. And I think we will be voting on his next salary increase before we put him in a full-time position. So I think I would love for Mr. Griggs to be here the next time we meet, and for that to be an item on the agenda about our options. And I think by the next meeting, we do need to discuss with City Council if this resolution, if they're suggesting us to please ignore it and with a 6-person board vote on that issue. But I am supportive of him taking that role. I mean, I think he's done a tremendous job, and I think we need to be fair and very specific about his performance and the guidance so that he has an opportunity to accomplish that without subjectivity.
As a new board member, my thought would be, and I'd love to have a discussion on, what is it that the people that are not supportive of him, what is it that he's lacking? And what is it that we're hoping to get from a new candidate? It would have to be concrete things. You know, I don't think wasting $25,000 or another year just to see what's out there isn't necessarily the best interest of the agency. And I do know when people have uncertainty, they don't perform to the 100%. If somebody, you know, if they don't know if they have a job next month, I mean, I'm exaggerating next month, but they're not going to come in every day. And not saying that he's not performing right now, but, and so if we can, as a board, kind of discuss what is it that maybe he's lacking, or if it's something that we can say, hey, Mr. Alexander, you know, these are our concerns. Is that something that you can implement, improve on? Or me not knowing any history on this, like you, that would be my first thought, is why not? Do you guys think that's fair? I mean,
Yes, I do.
And I think.
I want to, I'm sorry, Commissioner. You want to speak?
No, I was just saying, and I think having the benefit of a full board discussion
Totally,
with
yeah.
Charles present would probably be very.
Yeah.
I wanted to say this just to, you know, to the Commissioner. Mr. Alexander, I'm just gonna ask you a question. Since you've been in the interim position, I understand next month we have been here 3 years, because when we first brought you on, we brought you on as the Vice VP. But since you've been operating in the interim position, can you tell us how you have impacted the Jacksonville Housing Authority since you've been here? I mean, for as credits, grant. I mean, can you tell us how you have impacted the Housing Authority since you've been here?
Well, I will probably be here all day.
Oh, well, I'm trying not to be here all day. I'm gonna give you 3 minutes.
But briefly, I would just say that I was very thankful when Ms. Phillips asked me to step in the position, because I had the knowledge, skills, and ability to be able to do the job. And it was a crisis at the time that I stepped in the position, because many things were broken around here. And then many things were exposed during the process of the OIG audit, because it was some things people just didn't know, and some things that the board wouldn't know unless they did an investigation. So many things was exposed and it was open, and I was fortunate to take on the task to try to fix many of these things that we have. And I can say here today with conviction that we are an accredited managing organization, which I've brought to the board's attention before. We are the only housing authority in the state of Florida. And this is facts. We're the only housing authority in the state of Florida. And they actually just came out with a press release yesterday that we are only the 5th housing authority in the country out of 3,200 housing authorities, which is a testament to our success and what we're doing and how we're managing properties around here. We have a great relationship with HUD. We have a great relationship with many of our partners here in the city, which we didn't have before. We just received notice the other day that we are receiving some more vouchers. I would tell you, when I got here, our Housing Choice Voucher Program, our annual budget was close to about $50 million. Our annual budget right now is more than $65 million. That's a significant increase because we receive more vouchers. And it's just our Housing Choice Voucher Program. Our Housing Choice Voucher Program alone, and that's apart from public housing or any of our affordable housing or just private management companies that we have. Our Section 8 department is larger than at least 98% of all the other housing authorities in the state of Florida. So we are a high performer. We are consistently achieving our goals, and we have been moving this agency forward. I mean, the whole look on the housing authority now is a lot different. The face of this agency is a lot different than what it was 2 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Due to the fact that I know that our commissioners had a tight schedule today, and they definitely had to get out of here by 11. Commissioner Phillip, if you could say.
One quick.
Okay.
For any members of the public that are there and have seen in the news the information about the infestation that's happening at Hilltop Apartment, that is not a part of the Jacksonville Housing Authority. And that needs to go on record because I have received several calls, including one on my ride here this morning, asking about what we were doing about it. I wish there was something that we could do about it because it is deplorable, but Hilltop is a federally subsidized that does not come through the Jacksonville Housing Authority.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, thank you for putting that on the record, because yes, we have been getting calls about that, and that's how it is with so many other properties here in the city that they think all those type properties are ours, but they're not. So we definitely thank you for that, Commissioner Phillip, for putting that on the record. I thank all of our commissioners I know we didn't get through our agenda today, but we'll move it to our regular board meeting, the rest of our agenda. But what I do want the commissions to do, look at the item 5 on the agenda. Be thinking about it so that when we come together at our official board meeting, and I'll make sure that Commissioner Briggs get a copy so that you can jot down some things that you want to put on record about Mr. Alexander or whoever that would be our CEO process for his evaluation. Yes, Commissioner.
Just real quick, how are we going to address the 2 additional new members? I know me and my colleague here were pretty new, but now they're going to be walking and they have to vote. That's a big decision, and I don't think that's the weight they want to carry. So how do we even go with the 2 new members? It's kind of pointless.
We're gonna get with our legal team.
Okay.
And make sure that we're gonna ask them some questions about that.
Okay.
So that they can be brought up abreast on what our process and what we're getting ready to do. We'll ask them some guidance on that.
Through the chair, very important to get guidance on whether we can get a new sort of resolution
Yeah, I
to
am.
allow
I'm
us to
gonna,
act with their
yeah, I am. I'm gonna get a
support.
meeting. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I thank all of our commissioners for your support today, all of the staff that was on, our legal team, thank you so much for all of your input today. We appreciate you. And that closed out our April special Board of Commissioners meeting. That closed us out at 11:06. I believe that is the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Y'all too. Thank you.